History, Stevens said, is a nightmare from which I'm trying to wake. James Joyce in Ulysses. We cannot keep up. I do mean we in the general sense of the word. There's too much going on all at once to track everything correctly. And apparently, we can't trust AI to fully track it for us because it goes off on its own tangents at various intervals. But also, History She Wrote can't keep up because so much is happening that things become history before they can be properly researched and diagrammed and placed in the appropriate setting of the past to explain how we got here. By the time we research the roots of one current event, the world is on to another. But also, this is precisely why we keep on with everything. Even though the lag time means we're not hitting the particular algorithms that shout, right now, the hot topic is tariffs. The hot topic is Iran. The hot topic is China. The hot topic is blah, blah, blah. But that's okay. What it means is that by the time this episode of History She Wrote goes live, and we will be talking about Iran, by the way, who knows what the status of anything will be? It's all changing very quickly. The world, by the time all of this is edited and fact-checked, may look very different from the way it looks while it's being edited and fact-checked. I think my most WTF moment as the Iran news developed was reading about Greek naval ships headed towards Cyprus to deal with the threat from Iran. A flashback of about 2,500 years that I was not expecting to come full circle in 2026. And feel free to say this along with me, everything old is new again. There has been so much retrospective on the 1979 Iranian Revolution, and a little less, but still a lot, on the 1953 Iranian coup d'etat that neither of these historic episodes needs any help from us. Luckily, we have a meme for that. And while I won't be going back 1,500 years, there is still plenty to talk about just 120 years ago. To put in Strauss-Howe terms, the history of Iran in the previous fourth turning, or maybe the third part of the previous generational cycle. Okay, now we're getting way too deep for a 20-minute episode. In any case, a discussion of foreign intervention and regime change. Before the Islamic Republic in Iran today, there was the Pahalvi Dynasty. And before the Pahlavis were the Qajar Dynasty, which was in place a little longer, for about 130 years. The Qajar came to power using tribal alliances, but soon began to run into problems. First, their military was not modernizing, and second, they were crushed between militaries that were modernizing. Third, they were absolute crap at administrative tasks, which led to, fourth, massive corruption. As a result of all of this, by the 1880s, Nasir al-Din Shah realized the situation was dire and needed to be addressed. He chose to attempt to modernize the military, and 2 new units were created by opposing foreign powers. The first one to organize was supported and staffed by Austria-Hungary. The Austrians, being very Austrian, had very definite ideas of what a modern military should look like. This included a fully equipped military band, which they made sure to include in the plans and equipment. The Austro-Hungarian military mission was used to crush a Kurdish uprising in Azerbaijan, but Nasir stopped paying them by 1881, and the military officers began going home. Not all of them. The military academy was established and run by an Austrian officer for quite some time. But the idea of a well-trained force based on the Austro-Hungarian military did not gain a foothold. But At the same time and in the same place, Austria's biggest rival was also establishing a military force in Iran. Russia was training, equipping, and crucially paying the Iranian Cossack Brigade. Russia had decided that it was in their best interest to keep the Qajar dynasty on the throne and compliant to Russian wishes, not only to combat the possible influence of a military unit beholden to Austria-Hungary, but also to deal with the British, who were making their own political deals in Iran. Because salaries were regularly paid, since they were not beholden to the coffers of the Shah, Persian Cossack Brigade was able to be what no other military unit in Iran at that time was: cohesive, strong, and well-trained. In 1896, when Nasir al-Din was assassinated, the Russian-led Persian Cossack Brigade cemented their place as kingmakers in Iran by making sure the heir to the assassinated Shah was placed on the throne. And from here on out, the Persian Cossack Brigade remained a massive force of the Qajar dynasty. However, there were still others. Around 1911, Ahmed Shah Qajar brought another military force to help subdue issues within the disintegrating nation. With the British pressure in one direction and the Russians pressuring from another direction, and the subsequent British and Russian agreement to divide up Iran between them, Ahmed Shah felt he needed a third and unaligned power to keep the others at bay. And this is how the Swedish volunteers in Persia entered the picture. The Swedish volunteers were also quite effective. They quelled several uprisings and established the Persian Gendarmerie Academy. They were supposed to make the roads in Iran safe. And while not an epic success, the roads were safer. But at the start of World War I, the Russians and British viewed the Swedes very suspiciously. And as a result, the Swedish government called their troops home. They did not all leave. A few were involved in planning a coup which would overturn the Russian-led Persian Cossacks. Accusations flew, and eventually the British Persian Rifles took over gendarmerie duty. And then the Russian Revolution came. Most of the Russian soldiers in Iran sided with the White Army, and while they turned over the command of the Persian Cossack Brigade to the British, Iran looked like it would become a massive battlefield between the Red Army and the White Army. A proto-Soviet state formed in the north of Iran, run by an alliance of communists and Islamists, joined by the hate of foreign influence in Iran. By this time, the Persian Cossack Brigade had a new leader, Riza Khan, who did not yet have a last name. Created a brigadier general by the British and promoted by the same British, Riza Khan had started at the bottom of the ranks and worked his way up. Now, he was in charge of the foremost military unit. Iran was descending further into chaos, and with the proverbial wink and nod from the British, he marched on Tehran and took it. At this point, there was still a Qajar Shah, but it was very clear quickly that the real power was the head of the Persian Cossack Brigade, who was mopping up resistance in problem areas all over the country, and who defeated the Persian Socialist Soviet Republic in the north. And by 1925, Riza Khan, who now had the last name of Pahlavi, convinced the Iranian parliament to oust the Qajar Shah officially and crown the head of a new dynasty. He became Riza Shah Pahlavi. The regime change seemed to be complete. Except regime changes are rarely the end of the story. They're followed by other regime changes who then fall to more regime changes. So on and so forth. A leadership change within the regime was effected in 1941 when Reza Shah Pahlavi seemed entirely too sympathetic to Hitler, and again a joint invasion by the British and the Soviets was aimed at installing a more sympathetic ruler. And then there was 1953, followed by 1979, and then the 1980s, a few other various issues, and now there is now. Whatever now is. At this point, we begin to realize that not only is everything old new again, but the old things were actually new versions of older things, which were in turn even older things ad infinitum. And again, all of this was so complicated that we're not even scratching the surface at this point. We didn't talk about oil concessions, tobacco contracts, luxurious trips to Europe, constitutions, increasingly weak shahs, minor tyrannies, or the vast spider web of almost everything else that was going on in the twilight of the Qajar Shahs. And we certainly didn't get into the state of the world outside Iran at that time, which was also supremely important in understanding what was going on inside Iran. But we have to start somewhere. And the history of the nation we call Iran is thousands of years long. As Christopher Marlowe wrote in his play Tamburlaine, "Unhappy Persia, that in former age has been the seat of conquerors."
What to do?